Yeah. Sheesh. Watch us how we move like this. Watch us how we move. Oh, yeah. Watch us how we move like this. Watch us how we move. Oh, yeah. Watch us how we move like this. Watch us how we move. Oh, yeah. Watch us how we move like this. Watch us how we move. Oh, yeah. We gon' move like this, like this, like this. Yeah, we gon' move like this, like this. Oh, yeah. We gon' move like this, like this, like this. Yeah, we gon' move like this, like this. Oh, yeah. Watch us how we move like this. Watch us how we move. Oh, yeah. Watch us how we move like this. Watch us how we move. Oh, yeah. Watch us how we move like this. Watch us how we move. Oh, yeah. Watch us how we move like this. Watch us how we move. Oh, yeah. We gon' move like this, like this, like this. Yeah, we gon' move like this, like this. Oh, yeah. We gon' move like this, like this, like this. Yeah, we gon' move like this, like this. Oh, yeah. everyone to care. This global illness needs everyone to care. Now wherever you go, you go. Yes, we know we must win. We will fight this thing called cancer. We are champions. We are black people. We are care. We will win. Win. Yes, we know we must win. We will fight this thing called cancer. We are champions. We are black people. We are care. We will win. Win. If we fight, we won't lose, we won't fail. If we faith, love, we will overcome. Project cancer wherever.
All right, little morning music jam session. Well, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you are joining us from. And also, happy Juneteenth to those who are celebrating Juneteenth today. My name is Bims, and I am the media director here with iCCaRE Consortium. And today I am your host for the iCCaRE Screening Room. So today we are going to be premiering two series. One will be Clinical Trials Demystified, featuring Dr. Kim Barble Johnson, and the other series is CapCast Podcast, in which it focuses on family. Now, both of these series that I will be premiering today, they both are very important and focus on the timely topics within clinical research and cancer care. Specifically looking into why does clinical trials sometimes stop early, how safety and safeguards are built into research, and how personal and family planning factors can influence prostate cancer experiences as well as decisions. Now, this will be a very interactive session, so I encourage you to go ahead and drop any of your thoughts, any questions that you may have into the chat as we go along. And then at the end of both episodes, we will go ahead and get into some of the questions. So let's go ahead and get this started. Now, for our very first segment, we will be watching a short episode called Where Clinical Trials Stops Early: Failures, Safeties, and Safeguards. This will help us understand why clinical trials may stop before the completion, whether due to safety concerns, lack of effectiveness, or ethical oversight, and what those decisions mean for participants as well as researchers. Now, without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this episode of Clinical Trials Demystified.
Welcome back. Modern clinical trial safety rests on three foundational pillars. Modern clinical trial safety rests on three foundational pillars: independent oversight, informed consent, and continuous monitoring. Today we have a treat. We get to speak to someone who spends a lot of time overseeing clinical trials. She works in the space and has been an expert in the clinical trial area. Welcome, Sarah Vedeska. Sarah, it's so nice to have you here.
Yeah,
welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. So a little bit about
tell
my
us
background.
About your background.
Yeah, been in the clinical research space for over 10 years, varying roles. And so when I initially got into the space was in the coordination. And so that would mean I would work with the physicians who have those trials and see the patients. A lot of that has to do with scheduling, contacting the patients, making sure they get their tests done, get their medication on the time that is set by their research study. After doing that for a few years, took on some additional roles, and currently do a little bit more of the administration side. So manage a program that has a broad portfolio of cancer clinical trials specifically.
So you're in the cancer trial space right now.
I am.
You know, it's amazing how many roles you've had in a very short period of time, but I think it's wonderful for us to know more about kind of how safety is actually monitored at each and every level. So just for our audience, protocols, or like the storybook of how the clinical trials
Yes.
are pretty specific. They're like cookbooks, right? Of how clinical trials happen. And when patients enter into a clinical trial, or participants are in a clinical trial, it's up to people like you to make sure that the recipes for the trial are followed. Is that kind of what happens at the coordinator level, or who's responsible for making sure that all of the steps happen?
Yeah, for sure. So it definitely is a collaboration. In the end, it really is the physician leading that study who has the say and the full oversight, but they have a whole team that they work with to make sure we meet all those steps. Starting really just with the protocol development and making sure that we are designing it in a way that one is answering the question that they want. So we bring in a lot of teams with that. That could be statisticians, pharmacists, other medical experts, just to design that protocol to make sure we're answering that question, as well as safety. I want to say that. Another element of the protocol writing would just be ensuring that the study is designed ethically and safely, and so we consult our experts
To make sure that
to make sure we're following all the policies and procedures there. I forget what your question was and where we're going with that.
That's fine. The fact that there is a process for writing a protocol, and the fact that you consider everything in the beginning. So that's not just what do we want to discover? What do we want to see? Is this medication safe? Is it effective? Is this dose safe? Is this dose effective? So those are the things that I assume are on the protocol. And so you said that there's a group of people that work initially to make sure that those things can actually be the things that end up at the end of the study, are statistically or accurate. And then to make sure that happens, there are people like you who are overseeing the process at different levels. So now you said that you are at the operational end of clinical trials. And so once all of these many people, many cooks in the kitchen are doing this, how do you make sure that everyone is doing their part and all of the data is coming together for the benefit of safety, for the benefit of efficacy, for the benefit of the patient? And if you may, what happens if you find something isn't happening as it was supposed to within the trial? What's your responsibility? What does that process look like?
Yeah, I think that does go back to what you said initially with the multiple pillars, right, of the oversight on research studies. So you first mentioned an independent board. And so for us, we call that our IRB, or our institutional review board. And so it really is made up of a diverse group of experts and community members. They are not, they're knowledgeable about research processes, but they are not involved in the studies that they are reviewing. And if they have any type of connection with the study they're reviewing, they step away while that study is being
conflict of interest.
Yep.
Okay, good.
While that study is being discussed, they step away. And so some of the things that IRB would do is when studies are first submitted to them, they review that and they would approve for that study to be run as written in the protocol, like we talked about. Other things that IRB would do is we have a regularly scheduled reviews, and so we call those continuing reviews. A usual timeline for that is about yearly. That's scheduled to submit information to the IRB to review how that study's going. The IRB does determine that timeline, and so they can be a little bit different.
So they decide, like, if a study's happening for 5 years for a treatment protocol, that they want to see that how things are going within a year or within 6 months. Okay, so that's great. So there's continuous oversight.
And there's specific information that's submitted back, kind of depending on the study, and they review that and they make sure, again, that you're following what you said you were going to do, and that your patients or your participants are being treated ethically and safely. And there's a couple other times the IRB might come in, and some of those are if you want to change your protocol.
What would be a reason that you might want to change a protocol?
Yeah, some of the ones we see is maybe you'd like to add a piece to your protocol. You'd like to collect additional information or have additional testing, with your participants. Sometimes also you've noticed something on the patients that are on your study, maybe a safety, something that you need to report to your IRB so they can help you assess what needs to be changed with your study and what needs to be communicated to your patients.
That's very interesting, and it's great to know that there's so much oversight that's happening in this space. But you mentioned the safety or if something happens. And I think that's one of the biggest fears
Yeah.
that people have in signing up or permitting themselves to be a member of a clinical trial community is what if something happens? Am I obligated to finish this entire process? Will someone tell me? Is somebody looking out for me in this process? So what happens if there is what I understand is called a safety signal is raised? So what happens in that situation? Will we just tell the patient and stop all processes? What happens for most studies? And I know that we can't broad stroke this, but in general.
Yeah. And so do want to just go back to, so wherever the study is open, if there's multiple sites, every single one of those studies would be reporting to an IRB.
Okay.
Sometimes those are different IRBs and sometimes those are the same, but
So everybody is knowing what's happening at all
Yep.
sites all the
Yep.
time.
So,
Okay.
and those are connected, right? And so we, with the safety events, those get reported to our IRB. Sometimes they are participants that were on the study at our site, and sometimes we report things to them that were for participants at other sites. We want to make sure that we understand what's going on the whole study. And so some things that can happen with that is depending on what the event is, there has been times when we pause the study and we do further research and we look into what's happening to make sure it is okay to go forward. And there's a lot of scientific and physician that take that data where they're at and do that analysis to decide, should the dose continue at that level, should the treatment continue at that rate, things like that.
That's really good to know. You know, I participated in clinical trials for about 15 years, and depending on who's sponsoring the trials, many of the trials I've done have included other countries and my site in the United States. But I just recently traveled to Africa. And so if it's really just reassuring to know that if something is noticed in, California at a clinical trial site, that the investigators or the doctors who are participating in the study, the scientists in the study in Africa or Nigeria and Sierra Leone, that they will also be notified. And it is their obligation to inform the patients who are in the trial of what those things are. And if the study stops, say, in California, will it also stop for safety reasons at another site in another country?
It can. Yeah, it really depends on what that is. But yes, it can pause at certain sites for certain reasons or all sites if they need to do that. And then that information is reviewed. Like I said, a lot of times in that case, it's first reviewed by the people who have the protocol and to look into the real safety data. And then when we get more information there, we provide even more to the IRB. So we stop first to make sure that the safety, and then we investigate further. After we get that information, whatever that update is, we're going to provide that to our IRB. And so what happens there is they help us understand, do we need to change the study and change the documents like our protocol, our cookbook, or some other things that might happen are there's new things we need to tell our participants, right?
So that informed consent.
Yeah. And so with that, your study team would contact you and they would tell you, what the change was in your study, if that's new procedures, if that's potentially a new risk that was identified. And then you as the participant would have the right to review, ask your questions, take your time and decide if you'd like to continue.
That is an excellent point, because I've known family members in particular who kind of imagine clinical trials happening in a very static space. And so it's nice to know that there are many points along the way that, one, you can say yes or no to continue, and that your safety and your interest is being monitored. I want to get across the field a little bit more. So let's say the study's fine. There are no safety issues that are identified, and we've done what we said we're supposed to do. The patients are happy, the physicians are happy, and now all of the data is collected. What happens then? What happens? What do you do with that data as an oversight or regulatory person?
Yeah. So I think along the way, like we said, there's the people at the IRB that are doing safety, but along the way, we have other groups that are making sure the study is run appropriately and that the data is being recorded correctly and then being entered correctly into a system.
Is that like a data safety monitoring group?
So most of the time, your study team is documenting your your participation in the study in a certain place. And then we have a database where we de-identify your information. And so it's just the stuff that happened on the study without your name, without a way to connect it to you. But we need to make sure that the information that was entered about you is translated correctly, no errors, nothing like that. And so we have a few groups that help with that. One that does more on like a regular basis is what we would call monitoring. And that can happen by a few different groups depending on what kind of study you're on. Some organizations have internal groups that do that, and some have external groups they partner with.
That's like an audit.
So audit would be a little bit more of a
like an external.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, we have internal audits as
Okay.
well, but I think for monitoring, it's on a regular basis, and audits are more, I don't want to say one-offs, but a little
Okay.
bit more of like that. And so your monitoring is a plan. You'll have a plan that goes with your research study, and it happens, like I said, on a regular basis, whatever's agreed upon for your study. So if that is monthly or
So like
every
a report card checkup.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And so that also is an independent person. They're aware of the study and they're able to, view your information. That's all been approved, but they don't work directly on your study team.
So they're more objective,
Mhm.
and just making sure that things are
Exactly.
where it's supposed to be.
They're able to kind of take that step back and see, does the story we're telling make sense, or were there pieces missing, or did we get some of it just a little bit wrong in the transition?
Sarah, I think it's just really great to hear that there's so many people who are looking out for the safety of clinical trial participants. It's so interesting that there's so many different people, from scientists to auditors to monitors to data safety monitoring groups, that are part of every single study. And so I think that's really reassuring for people who may be hesitant to participate in clinical trials. It's often said that people in clinical trials sometimes get more care or better care. And while every trial has risk, and I make sure that I tell my patients that trials do not come without risk, it's really great to know how those risks are monitored. If you were going to be a patient, and not that I know if you were or not, or a participant in a clinical trial, what would be the most important thing that you would want to know? What would you advise our listening audience to ask about the safety aspect of the trial? And what are what's the one or two takeaway things that anyone who's considering being in a clinical trial should ask or be aware of in terms of safety and monitoring needs?
Yeah, I think it's always important to know that you can ask any questions that you have, and you should be able to get an answer. Sometimes that takes a little bit of time. They may have to follow up with some other groups, but please ask your questions.
So to be a participant, be
Yeah.
part of it.
Informed consent really is the biggest piece for me, is that you should know from your study team and the conversations with your doctor what you're signing up for, and you should have all your questions answered. You should have time to review that. Maybe that means going home and even talking with your family if this makes sense for you.
That's a huge part. And I know that we've used a lot of time today talking about the process, but this does begin with consent, right? So before you're even in the study, and that's such an important part of informed consent. One of the things I recently thought about, because I was international in Africa, is that process looks different for different communities. And so culturally, you may walk into an office here, have some paper to sign, discuss it with the nurse, but there are communities where their decisions are made by their parents and the grandparents and brothers and sisters, and they take home the information, and that's okay. Is that okay in all trials? That should you be able to have the opportunity to kind of culturally match that informed consent process, or does that change the research in any way?
Yeah, I think we want to take that into account when we have those conversations, and make sure that that person is able to discuss with the people they feel important to make that. In the end, we would want the person to decide, as long as they are of age, right? So, it's a little bit different with children.
So for adults, so without the assenting needs for children in trials. So that's important to know. And again, I'm happy that we're moving and having these conversations about the differences in culture as it informs your participation in trial. I'm happy to hear that independent review boards and other monitoring boards are in place to look out for patients. And I hope that resonates with those who are listening today as you consider either clinical trial participation for yourself or for family members. And if you wanted to get more information about clinical trials, clinical trial safety and oversight, what would be a trusted source? Where would be the source of one truth that a person could possibly go? Maybe your physician, or who should you, where would be that place that you would go just to make sure that you have all the information that you need?
Like on a general level?
Yeah.
Okay, I was like thinking
I'm
of like a
not even
website.
sure.
I was like, ugh.
I don't know, but I don't know of a website. I mean,
No.
there's probably some clinical trial websites that you can Google, but
I think you would hope you have that relationship with your doctor.
yeah.
You want to ask the questions and make sure you feel comfortable with what you're signing up for. You want to also remember that you can stop at any time, and that should not affect your care that you're already getting from your physician. So for any reason, you can decide you don't want to participate and you're able to withdraw that consent.
Well, this has been very helpful for me, and I think very informative for the entire process. I hope that this has been as informative for you. Sarah Videsca, we want to thank you again for spending time with us today and helping our audience to be more comfortable in the safety and regulatory process for monitoring and oversight of clinical trials. Thank you.
All right, so that was episode of Clinical Trials Demystified, and we hope that you enjoyed that episode. All right, there is a lot to reflect personally in this episode about clinical trials, especially around how decisions are made in real time within clinical trials and how patient safety is always at the center of every conversation. Now, before we move on, I want to open it briefly up for reflection. I'm going to have a couple of prompt questions that I will save until the end, but just to think about it, and I'll also put it into the comments below. What stood out to you the most during this episode? Did anything surprise you about why clinical trials could stop early? And then lastly, how do you think these decisions can impact patients or their loved ones? And again, I will go ahead and put those questions in the comments in case you forgot, but I would love to go ahead and reflect on that episode from those questions when we finish up with this second episode. All right, so now that we have explored how clinical trials are monitored and sometimes stopped early, we're going to shift into a more personable and a more real-world perspective. Now, our second episode is CAPcast, which is a podcast. And this episode of CAPcast, it does focus on how does family planning affect when you're diagnosed with prostate cancer. In this episode, we explore how personal decisions around family, relationships, and long-term planning can influence when people seek care, how they respond to a diagnosis, and how prostate cancer impacts life beyond just the clinical setting. This is a very important conversation because not only does cancer affect the individual, but it also affects the individual's family, their relationships, as well as any future planning. So without any further ado, let's get a look into this episode of CAPcast.
Welcome, bonjour. They want me to do another language, so hey, that's the best I can do for right now. Welcome to another awesome opportunity and segment with iCCaRE, where we're going to be talking about family particularly, and how does family play into effect when you're diagnosed with prostate cancer. With us is Dr. Robertson, who can share us firsthand being on both sides as a doctor and then also being diagnosed himself and overcoming that to where he is still alive and kicking with us today. So without further ado, welcome to the space.
Thank you for having me again.
Hey, as always, we are glad. The door is always open. Just come in. Don't have to knock. Just open it up. We'll make sure we have the table and chair for you.
Okay.
Let's talk about, and we hear it a lot, when one man gets cancer, the whole family feels it. How do you feel about that, and how has it affected you?
Well, it's a very true statement. because I think in the past we've talked about the fact that the diagnosis of cancer was considered a terminal illness, that you were going to die. And if you have family, you certainly have to realign your thought process to how is my situation going to affect everybody else. So as a man, you're considered the leader, the breadwinner. You have to definitely think about what's going to happen to my family if I'm not here. That makes you think about the preparation that you've made to take care of your absence, if indeed you should succumb to this disease. It also makes you think about, what if I need more intensive care? Can my family provide that for me? Do they have to provide a place for me to go, like hospice or extended care? So it brings up a lot of situational thought that you may not have really considered before. And in fact, it makes you think about the preparations that you need, even if this isn't a part of your profile. So one should think about how important family is, because you shouldn't be on this journey of having a cancer diagnosis and have no support of any kind. Of course, there are people who are in that situation, but if indeed you do have family, it's important to now think about the steps you're going to take to even break this news. In my case, I have 4 sons, 1 daughter. I had to think about, how am I going to present this new diagnosis and what it may mean to them. My wife was the first person to have a sit-down conversation with. And then I thought about the kids and their families. I'm fortunate in my approach to that, because my daughter is a physician too. So she was the first thought that came to mind. So to talk to her, I knew that she would talk to everybody else in a way that they would be able to understand it. And we could talk about the intensity of my position in a way that she would understand, to make it easier. My wife's a nurse, so that was easy too. But everybody doesn't have those medical connections as far as presenting the diagnosis to the family. But it's important to present your situation, diagnosis-wise, to your family. So it makes you think about how you're going to do that. And for those of you who are disease-free, who have families and never thought about what would happen if I got a diagnosis I had to present to my family, now perhaps this conversation will help you think about how you're going to do that.
How did your family handle privacy during this time, and also still independence for you? Because like you said, as men, sometimes we like our privacy and we don't need help with everything. We know there's certain things we still would like to do ourselves, but how did your family handle those things?
Again, I have a situation that may not be too uncommon, in that genetically, this disease of prostate cancer had a generational effect within my family. So one other thing that my family did, and that we included healthcare into, was our family reunions. So through me, we talk about the diseases that we know about that exist in our family. So that it allows you to preconceive, what if the diagnosis should come to a family member? How are we going to handle that? What should we do? What the prospects for survival is. So I was fortunate in one respect to be educated in a way where we could deal with that. But the blowback to that was the educational opportunity it gave me. So we have breast cancer within the family, and you can point to a person going back 4 generations that had it. We have prostate cancer in the family, and then point at least 3 generations back that had it. So talking about diseases that are pretty significant was easy for us because that was a part of our family reunion day or week, depending on the time of year that we had it. We spent more time together. So we definitely talked about disease. And I emphasize that because I remember when I was young and the family talked about serious issues, I had to leave the room.
Yes.
You had to get up and go somewhere else.
Okay, they say go in the bag or go outside to play.
Anywhere you want to go, you got to get
You
out
gotta
of here.
hear.
Because we're talking serious. We're
Yes.
talking grown folks talk. That's
Yes.
what they used to call it. But we didn't know about the connection, the genetic connection to disease that made family history so important as it is now. So I seized that opportunity to make sure that we always talked about breast cancer, prostate cancer, even before the diagnoses were made.
Were you scared or nervous on how your family would treat you after they found out your diagnosis? Because sometimes when we share important things with our family looks at us differently. They don't look at you as the same Dr. Robinson. They look at you, oh, you're the Dr. Robinson who had this. You're the Dr. Robinson who had that. Or they may treat you more fragile. Oh, I got this. You don't have to worry about this. Or they always want to bring up the D word, death. And always look at it from mindset, oh, I got to do this now because I don't know when I ever see you again. So were you ever scared or nervous of that perception?
Again, specialness of our disease situation, going back 4 generations, eliminated that.
Okay.
We knew not to take care of the problem is going to lead to death, but we also knew from those who died what was important to consider in case death was going to be a part of the history. So all of the questions that could have come up and all of the attitudes that could have come up have been handled in the past. We just addressed them in today's time frame as opposed to talking about how we lost this member that succumbed to the disease in the past.
So how did y'all handle it in the past than now?
In the past, from what we could gather from talking to our elders, was that they didn't have a clue about everything that they could do or should do.
Okay.
So education-wise and being brought up to where we are time frame, that has changed. 'Cause now all the females, all my nieces know what to do about breast cancer. All my nieces know about the signs of breast cancer. All my nieces know about the presence of the BRCA1, BRCA2 gene as far as that's concerned. So their mental process is a lot different. And they think about whoever gets ill from this particular disease is going to be here because they're going to take care of it to the extent that they'll be here.
How did y'all family overcome? Because when I hear the word all, I just think about family trees and how people have 20, 30, everybody's a cousin at some point in time. So when you say all, and I think of time, how did y'all family overcome the appearance of, you need to get your check, thank you, thank you, I got 2 more years. I'll worry about that later. How did y'all overcome that from a family perspective, that barrier of time and sharing it with them?
Well, the educational process helped in that everybody was aware that the earlier you approached dealing with this, the better the outcome was going to be. And then by reference, we could refer to Aunt Alice, who didn't have the information that we had. Okay. And discovering late in the course of the disease, she didn't have much opportunity to have it dealt with either. Okay, but then again, that was then, and we're in a different time frame. So it was easy because we addressed it so often, and that's on a yearly basis. Excuse me, when we had family reunion. So it wasn't that difficult, and the individual families that came would share that information amongst themselves, and we also had that connection that made all of us in the same boat genetically. So it made it easier. And I understand a lot of families not that close knit. A lot of families are not that educated. A lot of families don't even have family reunion, which makes it a little different for when you talk about my family.
How did your family, because you said like Aunt Alice, she did not have those resources. And sometimes that is hurtful, because the reason why a person didn't have those resources was because of community and the lack thereof. How did your family overcome the lack thereof due to stereotypes, due to things that were just outside of our control? How did your family deal with those things to make sure that, again, this doesn't happen to me, but more importantly, as our family continues to grow and people get married and their family, comes in, how did y'all overcome, from a community point of view, overcome that barrier of lack of resources that affected previous generations?
Well, there was a big difference in the access to those resources. Most of the family moved from rural areas to urban areas, which made access to healthcare a lot easier. Fortunately, most of the family received a little education, so they had jobs that allowed for affordability. They had jobs that had health insurance. So the gamut of difficulties decreased over time from the past coming to the present time frame. So we didn't have to work that hard, if you understand what I mean.
Okay.
And that was just based on the circumstances and the good fortune that was within our particular family.
And you brought up a good point. Like I said, you've been blessed to, you have the education in your family. Y'all saw the importance and y'all build upon that. And I think so many times we deal with life.
Yeah.
And I know for myself, sometimes I wish I was the Huxtable. I wish I was that Theo, the Huxtables and everybody just, the Montalor and everybody. But that's not the case. Yeah. So we have to find resources and people have to share with us. And so what is something that you wish more families, especially our families, Black families, African-American families, knew about caregiving for someone with cancer or diagnosed with cancer?
First, to know that it's not going to be easy. And second, to know that it will be beneficial if it can be a shared experience. And for example, if you've got brothers and sisters and you're talking about father, mother, or senior person within the family, understand that it's almost impossible for that one sibling to do everything.
Yes.
So you have to come up with a way where that sibling that may still be in close proximity to the diseased person can get some respite, some breaks, that you really need to figure out a way that we're going to do this together as a sibling group, as opposed to depend on Mary or John because they're the oldest or the eldest and they can handle it. Well, no, they can't handle it if it's all an individual person doing everything. You have to share that responsibility, and easy to share amongst yourselves if you sit down and talk about how it can be done.
And that also limits family foolishness and drama, because when you're able to divide the work, now, big brother ain't mad at little brother because little brother get to do what they want to do while I'm the one that's doing everything else. It helps. It helps communication, like you said, sharing the responsibility. We all get older. We all have to do and change of life. Good point. Good point.
And in most families, if you really sit and talk about it, you can plan a way that's going to be beneficial, so that no one person has to shoulder all of the burden that will come with that caregiving experience. So communication is key, and the willingness to share is important. But the basis for that, as far as our family is concerned, is the education about the diseases that's built into our genetics. So we know about breast cancer, we know about prostate cancer, and we've known about it from the small ages. We didn't put kids out of the room. We had a conversation that presented what we could look forward to genetically in a way that they could understand and know what to look forward to. And as you grow older, your education about it becomes more meaningful. If not, you've studied it in your educational pursuits yourself. So, like I said, our family was special in that regard. Two diseases that we know has shown up in 4 generations, and the future, we know the possibility is going to show up in generations unborn.
Yes.
So
yes.
so we had a special link, communication and education link, that a lot of families don't have. But I push and suggest that you create those opportunities within families, which means you got to talk to each other, and you have to understand that disease happens in life, and what you're going to do about it is what's important, not the fact that you hope this disease doesn't strike. Well, it will in some way, shape, or form.
How does your family bring, oh gosh, I want to say light, but how does your family bring awareness in a way that's not, okay guys, for family reunion, go to ballroom A and have the diagram, and now you put on your lap coat, like what, but how does your family make it a conversation that needs to be had, but one that's enlightening, one that's encouraging, one that's uplifting?
Well, the other special thing is the healthcare worker base that's in the family, from physicians to nurses, makes it easier, because whenever there was a medical problem that arose, those are the people that got called anyway. So now the platform of the family situation, where all of us are gathered in this room to talk about, is anybody behind on their physician visits related to what we've been talking about as a family for ages, and that comes out. You find out who's due to have an exam, and you find out who didn't go when they should have gone, and you can rehash what the implications for that lack of being interested in yourself by history is going to do. So it was unique, but we weren't too big so that we had to get 3 meeting rooms.
Okay, not yet, right?
We had all fit in one meeting room.
Yes.
And we had stories of family members that everybody but the new kids knew. New kids knew what the pictures of those people looked like. So when they were brought up, they had a mental image of who the talk was about. and those who were newer could say, oh, that's what happened to whoever that member was. Whereas those of us who were older, who had a personal experience with that person,
Tell the story.
could tell the story in a different way.
Yeah.
It had more meaning because we lived with that person or we learned from that person. So it had a more personal aspect for us. But we're passing it down like the Africans, the griot and the storytellers in the village. And that, in our family, is extremely important. Why? Because the process of disease hasn't changed.
Preserving.
Hasn't changed.
Yes, preserving that history.
And I'm talking about grand level now. So my grandnieces are all aware that their sisters or their mother had an encounter with breast cancer. They all are aware that you can go to their grandparents in the family line that had this problem. So they know it's real. And more importantly, they're educated enough and aware enough to know that they have to be on the lookout for those changes. Same thing with the men in the family who left for prostate cancer and know who is currently suffering from prostate cancer.
Wow.
So that they can see the reality of it. This is real. This is not a make-believe story. It's not a fantasy. And it's something that genetically we have to be aware of. Well, the more educated you are, the more aware you should be. And then it's up to you to do what's necessary to make sure you're taking care of yourself based on your family history.
Awesome. Interesting question. So how do you welcome, not by birth, but by marriage or somebody dating, how do you welcome new people to that space, that family space of caregiving and prostate cancer awareness? Again, for I would say outsiders, but family that's now part of your family, but by marriage or dating.
Well, we welcome them because, number one, it's an opportunity to break up the genetic side.
Okay.
So new genes can hopefully eliminate some of the bad genes.
Yeah.
And the offspring from that may not have to worry about what we're talking about. But we talk about it and we say, you know, thank God you're in the family now.
Yes.
And this is why we think you're going to be a big change for what we have locked in our family, because they provide an opportunity for the disease process to be interrupted, if not eliminated altogether. So it's like sickle cell disease. You know, if you know you are a sickle carrier, but you are aware that if you have offspring with somebody who's a sickle carrier, one of your kids is going to have sickle cell disease.
Right.
You also know that you can't be afraid to ask the question to the new person, do you have sickle cell disease in your family? You know, you have to be real and outright with what the problem is. So then everybody becomes educated. The new guy feels better because, man, I'm glad I don't have that gene.
Yeah.
And maybe I can be helpful and eliminate the problem.
Yeah.
So they get a buy-in to the family that they've just entered, but we all have the educational experience so that we're still helping each other. I know what I should do because of what my family history is. I know what the opportunity you're bringing because yours isn't, and the future looks bright.
There you go. And then also too, like you said, with your family in that health industry, they should know that there'll be some questions about health, but maybe not at the first reunion where they're getting, you know, Aunt Maggie's potato salad, but somewhere, maybe not during the serving line, but somewhere.
Not when it's eating time.
There you go. That was eating time.
It's really a time set aside for the education of something special that we as a family have.
That's good.
And new members can hear that too. And they feel relief. Wow. But they also feel empowered that they're going to make a difference in their offspring.
Awesome. So what would you give as we're going to close? I'm telling you, the next time you have a family reunion, please. I'm not that cousin that y'all found out like long. Just let me know because I would love to be at the table to hear the importance of just longevity in life. And as we close, what would you give a family member, a family that's working on togetherness and working on, hey, we want to rally around one of our family members that we found out is diagnosed with cancer? What would you tell them to help rally together in that togetherness? What would you tell them?
That the coming together is not as difficult as you think. We used to have Zoom sessions, especially during the COVID period, so that we got to meet potential new family members online. You know, bring your boyfriend, girlfriend. We're going to have our family meeting today at 5 o'clock. So even though there was space and distance, we got to meet them. And the charge for that person who's connected to this new person was to talk about the specialness of our family as far as breast cancer, prostate cancer is concerned. So we're spreading the information. We're also giving you a chance to buy in. You may say, I won't have nothing to do with that family. I'm getting out of here. But you had an opportunity to learn and to solidify your relationship with us. But we're still in communication, even over distances, so that the story keeps going on. So there was no fall off in that, and we found that it wasn't difficult to talk about. Now we had a recent demise, maybe 4 months ago, from one of my nieces, one of my sister's oldest daughters, who had a recurrent episode with breast cancer and had metastasis the second time that spread the disease to her lungs and her brain. But we all knew what that meant. She had 3 daughters. One daughter moved her in with her. The other 2 were in close proximity. So they did rotate and support until the end. Again, that story is important now to younger members who are new to the family, but they grew up knowing this individual. Same way those of us who can talk about the 4th generation knew the people. So, you know, it keeps reinforcing itself, and hopefully everyone can see how important it was for the coming together of those daughters and that mother in that particular family circle. So it becomes real after a while. It's not just hearsay, and it's not just history. And hopefully that'll influence from now on all the younger members to feed off that, to learn from that.
Perfect. Well said. So the next time your family goes out to eat, invite that cousin, invite that auntie, invite that uncle, invite your family member, and have them put it on my tab. I see you again. Keep the family going. Have a great day.
All right. So that was Capcast. And thank you so much, everybody, for watching. This episode really brings us more of a human side into prostate cancer. How diagnosis isn't just medical, but it's also deeply personal and often connected to family dynamics and life planning. Now, we do have a couple of minutes left before our live stream is over. So I would like to take this time to get some discussion questions in. I did I did ask some questions a bit earlier prior to showing Capcast. So I'm just going to see if anybody had answered any of those questions. Let's see. Okay, So, okay, I see your answer here. So, one question I had was what stood out to you the most this episode? And that was for the clinical trials demystified. So, we see here what stood out to me was the operational details that goes into clinical trials. And yes, that's a great point. There's so much behind the scenes operational work that goes within clinical trials that people often don't see, but it really does drive everything to safety and to that data quality that we're looking for. So that is something that's really good. And then I see this other question. The question was, did anything surprise you about why trials stopped early? I see here. What surprised me the most is how often trials can stop early for ethical reasons. I didn't realize how much monitoring and decision making goes into the process. Yes, that's very important insight. I feel like the ethical safeguards and real time monitoring that really shows how carefully participant safety is prioritized in every single clinical trial. So that is really good. And so, just one final question I'll go ahead and ask the audience before we wrap up here. I'll ask this one. So, how do you think that families can play a role within encouraging early screening and care? So, I know I just asked this question, so I will give you guys a few moments to go ahead and think about your answer. And this will be the very last question that we will have for today. And again, the question is, how can families play a role in encouraging early screening and care? Okay. Give you guys some time. And even one word reactions or a couple words are helpful. Oh, okay. I see a comment here. Okay, cool. So it says families can really make a difference by normalizing screening, reminding them, and going with their loved ones to appointments. I think that is a very good tip, especially as far as reminding them, because a lot of times, me personally, even for like a doctor's appointment or a dentist appointment where I'm doing like an annual checkup, it would help if like my mom or somebody were to call me and be like, hey, you have a doctor's appointment tomorrow. Like, don't forget 9 a.m. because especially if it's, something serious like a doctor's appointment, it could be something that people put off. It could be something that people are scared to go to, or, they just need that encouragement. And then also going with them is a very good tip as well, just to make them feel a little bit more comfortable, is having that loved one with them, holding their hand in the room if they need to hold their hand, or, just doing what they need to do and make them feel comfortable and less stressed. Okay, see here. Family can play a role by normalizing discussions about screening and care. Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like, and by normalize, this to be a conversation that we have at the family dinner table. It could be something that we just bring up in conversation. It doesn't just have to be something, when you're already a little concerned about your health. It should be something that we talk about on a regular basis. So it's kind of already embedded in your mind. And so when it is time to go get screened or it's time to go to the doctor, you're not going to feel as confused, as lost, or maybe even as frightened, because you've had those conversations with your loved ones. So thank you, Dr. Rotimi. That was a very good comment. So I'm just gonna hang tight for about a couple more seconds to see if anybody else has any more answers. Okay, perfect. So I do see an answer here from Dr. Balajico. Ensuring appointments are regular. I completely agree. Making sure that your doctor's appointments are frequent instead of just, like I said, when we see something's wrong or when we're nervous or anything, make sure that you're already getting checked up on a regular basis, so that if there was something that was, alert or something that needs to be checked on, we'll go ahead and catch that early before things could get a little bit, a little bit worse. But I think that's amazing, is doing regular appointments. But yes, thank you so much to everybody. Oh, I'm sorry. Here I see one from Dr. Oderina. Scheduling on their birthdays. That is a very good idea. I think that is really good because, of course, we're never going to forget our birthday. I think scheduling it on your birthday in the morning just to kind of like wake up, go to the doctor, and then have the rest of your day to, eat cake, celebrate with your friends, your family, loved ones, open gifts. I think that is a very good point on doing it on your birthday. I think, you know what, even for a regular doctor's appointment, I might do that just so I can remember to go and remember that it's important. And, it's kind of like a reward for yourself. Like I go to this doctor's appointment this morning. I don't feel bad when I have 3 slices of cake later. It's kind of like a give and take. But thank you so much for that comment. So, okay, I believe it is our time. I do feel like today kind of went by a little bit fast, but of course, that always happens when you're having fun and having a great discussion. So I just want to, again, thank you so much, everybody that's viewing on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on StreamYard. We thank you so much for tuning in to this iCCaRE Screen Room. Again, for everybody that is celebrating Juneteenth, happy Juneteenth. Have a great 3-day weekend. I hope everybody enjoys their weekend. Have a blessed one, and we will see you on the next one. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Da 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 da. Yeah. Sheesh. Watch us how we move like this. Watch us how we move. Oh, yeah. Da 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 da. Watch us how we move like this. Watch us how we move. Oh, yeah. Da 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 da. Watch us how we move like this. Watch us how we move. Oh, yeah. Da 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 da. Watch us how we move like this. Watch us how we move. Oh, yeah. Da 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 da. We gon' move like this, like this, like this. Yeah, we gon' move like this, like this. Oh, yeah. Da 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 da. We gon' move like this, like this, like this. Yeah, we gon' move like this, like this. Oh, yeah. Da 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 da. Watch us how we move like this. Watch us how we move. Oh, yeah. Da 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 da. Watch us how we move like this. Watch us how we move. Oh, yeah. Da 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 da. Watch us how we move like this. Watch us how we move. Oh, yeah. Da 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 da. Watch us how we move.